Welcome to Brutally Anna, a podcast about finding love, losing love, and all the things we think about but don't talk about enough. I'm your host, Anna Kai, aka Maybe Both across social media, here to remind you that life can be beautiful even when it's freaking brutal. Our guest today is a force to be reckoned with, comedian, writer, and content creator Zarna Garg. From practicing law, being a stay-at-home mom, and to becoming one of Variety's 10 comics to watch, Zarna's journey is nothing short of one in a billion. Known for her sharp wit, cultural insights, and unapologetically honest take on life as an immigrant mother, Zarna's voice is one that's made waves on social media, in comedy clubs, and even on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. But Zarna's story is about more than just laughs. It's about resilience, navigating cultural expectations, and using comedy as a tool for personal freedom and expression. Whether she's talking about her Indian roots, her experience as a mother, or her rise to fame, Zarna brings an authenticity that's refreshing, inspiring, and of course, hilarious. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I love this podcast. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so honored to have you on. I feel like we started recording the podcast before we actually started recording, so we will get back into the nitty-gritty of it. But
Let's
first,
do it.
I want to hear a little bit about your background for people who don't know about where you came from, because you transitioned from practicing law. Were you a litigator? Did I get that right?
Yes, I was in litigation.
Okay.
I try to forget it. I was really bad at it.
Interesting.
At one point, all my clients were in jail.
Okay. And you couldn't get them out of jail?
No, and that was a sign. I was like, God is throwing a sign at me. Take it, girl. Before I end up in jail, I was like, I should exit. Exit this chat. Out. And that was my sign. I got out of it. And then I was like, you know what? I got married to a smart guy for a reason. Right. I'm going to stay home.
Okay. So you stayed at home for 16 years. You were a stay-at-home mom for 16 years.
3 kids.
Which is, look, that's a job unto itself. 3 in the city, too. We were talking about this. You decided to plant roots and make it work full-time in New York City.
It was not much of a decision. We were kind of stuck. But yeah.
Okay.
Because his job and, the whole thing. And like, why should a man be inconvenienced? So I will just crush my soul and sit in a shoebox.
Because it would have been better for you to have a car and a garage to throw the kids into. But
I was all about suburban life. I wanted it so badly. In my dream scenario, I have a house in New Jersey in the parking lot of Patel Brothers, the grocery store. Where like every day I go get my fresh cilantro and make my own little chutney. Like that's the dream I had.
But what about now? Why can't you do that now?
Now I have people who do it for me.
Okay.
Now the dream changed a little bit. I was like, you know what? I can have other people do that for me.
But the dream got better. See, this is why sometimes you have to let go of the dream you had, because the dream gets better.
Yes. And I'm going to get canceled for saying this, but 16 years of being with my kids full time, I learned something. I'm really not into them. I think
you spent a lot of time with them. At least online, it looks like, for not being that into them.
Yeah, because it's business now. They're my content. I was like, why am I the only one working? Make a video. Make a video about every stupid thing you're doing. Let's make a video. The thing is that I think it's okay to say, I love my kids, but I hate the job of mothering.
Thank you.
It's a crushing burden on one human being in this country. There's no support in any way. I'm not even talking about like federal paid leave, all that important stuff, because like God knows that's never going to happen. But it's like you can't even really have any like family around. That's just not the lives we live. So I think we're okay to say that. I now openly say it. I love my kids. Kind of, one of them for sure. My older son. But the job
I thought you were going to say Zoya.
Oh no, she's a girl.
She's a girl.
There are limitations. She's fine. She's not bad. But yeah.
I feel like you're going to have to, Chris, you're going to have to edit out all my cackling in this, because
I'm sorry.
I wasn't expecting her to be this funny off of the bat.
We got to go. We're in show mode.
Okay. So I put up an Ask Me Anything the other day on my stories, and I said, tell me your secrets, right? And somebody wrote into me, I hate being a mother, but I love my child.
Yeah.
And I don't have children right now, even though I am at an age and
Don't
I've been
do it.
married long. We're going to have one child
Right.
because we've decided, hey, I'm Chinese.
Yeah,
Let's bring it
right,
back to
right.
the olden
Got it.
days.
Like, you're right.
But also, one child is manageable because I had a friend of mine tell me at one point, a girlfriend of mine, she said, look, we only had one child consciously because we both work, we both love our careers, and at 2 children, somebody's career takes a hit, and it's usually the mom's.
Yeah.
So, but you had 3 because
Yeah.
you were like, I just want to be tortured 3 times over.
I am not me until I complicate the shit out of my own life. This is a gift I have been given from God, and it's a gift that keeps on giving. Every time I do something, anything, I find a way to like, how can I make this more work, more complicated, more unhinged? I've written a screenplay, but I learned out of YouTube how to write a screenplay. That screenplay won the top comedy award in America. And I was like, one screenplay? This should be a trilogy. And I just started writing 3 at a time. This is my life. Like, I've come to embrace the insanity that's my mind.
But that's why you're here. And here's the thing is, I want to know, why did you decide to start stand-up other than the fact that you embrace chaos? Because you were at a point in your life where, look, most people would have been like, I've raised 3 beautiful, successful children, right? Yes, we're going to head nod.
No.
And
one's dating a white girl.
And this is it for me. I should feel fulfilled in life. So why did you?
No, I was dying. I really
all
wanted
16 years you were dying.
No, the first few years was like cute. You play the role.
Yeah.
The first few years you have the baby, it's all cute. There's blankets and pillows, and like, you go for a walk with the stroller, and the stroller's new, and it's all like, it's cute. America glorifies it.
Yeah.
You take the photos, you take the selfie, you write the book, the height, the blah, blah, whatever. And then it like adds up, and then you wake up one day and you're like, 10 years of your life are just gone. 10 years. Just like, talk to any mother who has even one kid. 5 years, just close your eyes and it's gone. And somehow everything you did was wrong. Like, if you breastfed, you shouldn't have because whatever. This was wrong. If you didn't breastfeed, that was wrong. Somehow every choice you made will be like, was this the right choice? So I was dying. Towards 10 years into being a mom, I was like, I need to get back to work. I didn't come to America to obsess over my kids' football. And, you get caught up. Yeah. You get caught up in that life. And no one made me, so I'm not a victim. It's all me. I didn't just want to be a mother. I wanted to be the mother. Like all of us, It was like, my kid can't just run track. She's also going to be ice skating and swimming and playing golf and playing the violin. And it was insane. But 10 years into it, I was like, you know what? This needs to stop. Like, actually, my husband had a moment with me. He's like, you have become scary and unbearable to live with. Can you imagine how bad it must be if he has to be like, somebody needs to tell her.
It's going to be me.
The story of this, what led to this was about this sock that a travel soccer game in Poughkeepsie. I took the wrong sock and they were like, he can't play, my son. At 4 a.m. we drove up and they're like, he can't play, you didn't get the right sock. And we cried the whole way back. The whole story is in the book, people. Like, my book is like, it's all the truths out there. And I came home and I was like, nobody will ever use any socks without going through me. And I started carrying a bag around and like yelling at everybody because I was like, don't touch that sock, don't. And my husband took me in the room and like, not for sex. He was like, you're freaking everybody out. Like, what are you doing to yourself? What are you doing to me? Like, what is happening? And he's like, you have so much energy and you're wasting it over freaking socks. What happened to you? And I really took a step back and I was like, what happened to me? You get so lost when you have a kid. You get so caught up in the hype of like good mothering and good parenting. And I was right there, like fully responsible for my own insanity. I blame nobody for it but myself. But I was in it. And then I had to find my way out of it.
But why comedy? Why do like one of the hardest things ever, stand-up comedy?
Yeah.
And
well, first I didn't know it was hard.
Okay.
I'm still not sure. They do a lot of standing around and whining. If you meet the comics, it's a lot. I'm like, this isn't like brain surgery. It's fine. I mean, I come from a family of doctors. They're like
Right.
doing lung transplants.
No,
This is not hard.
But I think there's varying degrees of difficulty. Yes, doctors performing surgery is unequivocally harder.
Yeah.
But there's something about stand-up comedy and comedy in general where you're very vulnerable, and it's, you know what, you have to put your ego on the chopping block, and you have to be willing to be publicly humiliated if the jokes don't land. So, but why do that? That's really horrifying in a different way.
So luckily, I have 26 years of training with the world-class ego destroyer, my mother-in-law. Like, literally, she lives for that every day to remind me. Like, she's like, my son got LASIK to marry you. Yeah, it's a thing in our life. He got, like, I remember back in the days, like, I bought him a Brooks Brothers jacket so he could meet you. So every day, imagine that life. But I wasn't thinking of comedy. What Asian woman is like, comedy is a business?
Yeah.
My kids made me. My daughter was like, Mom, I tried and failed at 17 businesses.
Interesting. So you tried other things. It wasn't just like, I'm a mom and let me just try.
Travel toothbrush, vegan chili, matchmaker. I was a matchmaker for a hot minute. The stars matched to my 3 clients who paid for me back then. I'm so sorry. It was so bad. That whole job is like telling women it's not too late, but it's actually too late. But like the whole thing is like fake finessing. Like, no. Your guy is out there. And like, you're like, he's not out there. But it was really, it was like intense. But the good thing is that I recognized when the business was not going anywhere. Immediately.
You knew when to quit.
Yeah, I was even though I was passionate for a minute when I started something, the first time I saw the sign that it's not going to go anywhere, I cut the cord immediately. I was like, I cannot afford to waste any more time. I was already 40 something when I went down the road of entrepreneurship. And I was very frustrated because I had just won the top comedy feature award for my screenplay. #1 award, beating out 11,000 scripts, and no one wanted to talk to me. No agent, no manager, no studio, nothing. So I was like, I don't know how to make a movie. I really thought if I wrote a great script, somebody will make it. It's not like that, by the way. The good script and how to get things made are not connected. Now I know. And my daughter was like, Mom, forget all this. You just need to get your voice out there. You need to just show people what you're about. And also, no one reads anymore. Even people who are paid to read don't read.
They use ChatGPT.
Yeah. They're like, summarize this for me.
Right.
So she suggested comedy. And at that point, I had put my kids through 15 years of doing things they didn't want to do as a mom. So I was like, all right, I kind of owe it to them to do one thing that they think I should try. And I showed up at a comedy club that my friend recommended. For the first time ever, never
Which one was it?
West Side Comedy Club in New York City, 75th and Amsterdam.
This was in 2018?
2018.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I'll take a selfie. I'll show them that I was there. That's the end of it, that I did it. And I went there and I was like, I didn't even know what comedy was. Like, we're Indian. I'm Asian. You're Asian. Like, who goes out to have fun? Like, if it's not an SAT prep class, I'm like, I'm not going there.
Right.
So I went and I was like, what are these people doing? And all these comics, it was an open mic, which I didn't know what it was, but I was watching what was happening. And the woman who ran the club, also a mother of 3, said to me, you're already here. Why don't you go up on stage and do 5 minutes? And I was like, 5 minutes of what? And she's like, just talk about whatever you think is funny. So I got on stage and I started trashing my mother-in-law. I mean, who doesn't think that's funny, right?
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let me stop. They were having so much fun and I had a moment of like, could this be my thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, because it was natural. Like, I think
yeah.
It's like a good relationship. The right career should be easy, right? The work is always hard.
Yeah.
But like it should feel organic. And you had 26 years of your mother-in-law to draw from. So 5 minutes, hell, you probably could have gone on for 5 hours.
Hours. I still can if you pay me enough. Yeah, I mean, I just started saying everyday stuff that she's been saying all these years. And people were loving it. I couldn't believe. And I was standing there thinking, am I hearing like a click from the universe?
Yeah.
You know.
And so was it full steam ahead after that, or did it take you a while to do your next open mic?
So I did it the way I do everything like a good Indian student. I really thought that I don't know comedy, but the comedians must exist. I just don't know. I was so buried in my own life that I was like, oh, this must be a thing that I just don't know about. And I started doing research like Indian women in comedy, mom comics, immigrant comics, and like, there's no one.
Yeah.
0 people. And I was like, that's not possible. How can that be possible? Right? But the more I dug into it, the more I was like, how can no one on earth be doing this? And that's when I was like, this is the business I've been waiting for.
Because you found your niche. You are so. I remember when you first came across my For You page, I was like, who is this? This is so different.
Yeah.
And I think one of your first jokes I heard was about your mother-in-law. And I was like, this is amazing. It was when your Amazon Prime special came out. And I thought, this is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Because there have been female comedians for a long time, but certainly none that started later in life.
Yeah.
And I think you had a video at one point where you were like, oh, you know, people are always like, oh, you started later in life. And you're like, this is late in life? Like, you didn't necessarily feel like you were old, but then all of a sudden, when you kind of broke out onto the scene, everybody else was like, you're old. Yeah. How did you do it? How old were you, by the way? When
44.
44.
And I had no idea that I was late to anything.
Right.
I was just busy living my life. And I remember I was on a CBS morning news show with Gayle King. And she said, you know, it's so inspiring. You started later in life. And I was like, I did? You know, I had no awareness. I was just so busy living my life and like getting up and falling and failing and then trying something new that it never occurred to me. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful that I just never put any thought into the timing of it all. It just sequentially worked out the way it did, you know.
But I think that's also why your comedy is so great. It's so detailed and nuanced in a way that everybody can relate to it because you've lived it. Like, I don't know if your comedy would have been the same way when you were 24.
Well, yeah, exactly. I don't know if I would have had the material. I mean, the young comics, God bless them, it's a lot of whining. Yeah. It's a lot of whining about all the things their mom and dad didn't do. And that's just not who I am, even as a person.
Right.
So I don't know what I would even talk about back then. Now I have the perspective of being the parent, of being, to even be a full-fledged immigrant, it doesn't really happen. It doesn't hit you until you have kids. And you're raising them. And you go through the trauma of raising them by yourself. Until you have kids, when you're an immigrant, you're basically on a study abroad program. Put your backpack on, go live where you want to live, do what you want to do. Sleep in, don't sleep in, it doesn't matter. When you have kids, it hits you that if you want to sleep in 1 extra hour, you got to pay somebody to watch that kid for that hour. Otherwise, you can't do it.
Right.
It's like, you know, yeah. So I'm glad I didn't even think about being late. Like, I don't feel old now. I probably am, but...
It's all relative, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting, so how old were you when you came here?
I was 16.
You were 16.
Yeah.
And you lost your mother at a young age, right?
Yeah, I
How
did.
old were you?
At 14.
At 14.
Yeah.
So you came to the U.S. 2 years after you lost your mother.
Yeah.
You don't talk about that a ton in your comedy, I feel like. But what was that experience like? Because I found it and I was like, oh, that's really interesting that you lost somebody so pivotal in your life at such a young age. Like, you're so funny and you're so resilient. And, you know, we have a couple mutual friends, and everything I hear about you through the grapevine is that you're so hardworking. You know, you take everything in stride. But like, I think about losing my mother right now at age 34, and I feel like I'd probably just like fall off the face of the earth. For 10 years, if that happened, how did you handle that as a 14-year-old? And how do you find the will to go on and then create this life afterwards? Because you talk about the trauma of raising your kids, but to me, that's more traumatic, losing the person who was supposed to raise you.
So everything in life is a gift and a curse. I lost my mother and completely unexpectedly. She was 48. she got sick and then just never came back. The day after her death, my dad said, "You need to get arranged." I was the youngest of 4. He was like, "I'm done parenting." And now, as a parent myself, I kind of understand the exhaustion. I really do. I never held it against him that he said that, but I really do understand it now that I am a parent of 3 kids.
But it was also cultural. I mean, arranged marriages are very cultural.
Much.
Yeah, so it was the norm.
And I was at that point, I used to come and go to America a lot. My sister was living here. She was married and settled in America. So I was heavily influenced by American culture. I grew up with American pop culture even as a 10-year-old in India. I watched all the TV shows. I read all the books. I read all the comic books. So I just my dad's like, "You need to get married." I was like, "No." And he goes, "If you don't, you can't live here." I was like, "All right, I don't even want to live here. I have so many friends." As a sassy 14-year-old, I was like, "Who cares about your house?" I really thought my life would be one big slumber party. And I left on a whim my house, and I just went to my best friend's house. And after 2 days, her mom's like, "I think you need to go home." And that's when it hit me.
You can't live here.
Yeah, that's when it hit me that now what do I do? Because my dad wasn't getting around. That's the thing that people in America don't understand. Sometimes they're surprised by it. Back home in Asia, when the father says something, he means it. He's not negotiating it. This is what he expects to happen. So he was very much like, "If you want to live in my house, that's how it's going to be. Or figure it out." And that kind of put me on a journey of how to live how to find that next step. And the only person who was willing to take me in to live full time was my sister, who lived in America.
So you took the option of, no, I'm going to figure it out.
But it took me 2 years to figure it out. Because, getting even a visa to come to America, not easy from India.
Right.
And with no parent taking you. I used to circle the US Embassy by myself as a 15-year-old. And of course, it all got worked out. We figured it out. But yeah, that's how I came here.
So you avoided an arranged marriage, but then you did end up getting married. How did you meet your husband?
I met him online in 1997.
Whoa.
Yeah. We are one of the original online dating stories. Actually, the earliest that I know of.
Yeah, that is crazy. What website? It wasn't an app back then. Or what service?
It wasn't even much of a website. It was so new. I was a law student at Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, and I was starting to feel old myself. I was 21. And I was like, maybe my dad was right. I'm never going to meet him so old. Who wants an old girl who can read? My whole life, my dad was like, "Oh my God, please don't read. It's so bad for women." And I was an obsessive reader. Obsessive. I still am. And he was like, "This is the worst thing that can happen to you." And I was like, maybe he was
educated.
Right. Yeah, because now you have opinions and nothing's going to be easy for you in your life. So what happened is that I was in Cleveland, and, Cleveland not having a lot of Indians back then. But it was the year that AOL had just launched in America. You might even be too young to know what AOL.
No, I remember AOL because that was our first internet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And their hoardings, their ads back then.
Accurate.
Yeah, that was a good sound effect.
AOL should be. If you're Gen Z, you have no idea what. But I'm that was the OG. That was was the beautiful sound because you knew your internet was working. And
you waited, you were so excited to hear it. But man. AOL's hoardings back then were "Open up your world, 1995." If you bought an AOL account, you opened up your world. I was like, all right, we need to open up my world.
From Cleveland.
And I bought that account and I was like, what is this even? And I remember goofing around and I saw a matrimonial site, Indian matchmaking site, HTML, characters, nothing, no photos, nothing. And I was like, what is this? Because I had seen my dad go the arranged route with 3 of my siblings, I knew that world really well. Most people on those sites were writing ads they were writing for newspaper, but now on the internet. My son is 28 and a doctor and a whatever, and he earns this much because Indians,
Yeah.
This much in dollars converted into rupee, like the whole thing. And I'm like watching with fascination, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should put my own ad. Because I had nobody, like I didn't have parents who were watching out for me. I couldn't put that on my sister. So in one inspired moment, I wrote a batshit crazy ad for myself. I was like, I'm short, I'm fat, but I'm looking for a life partner. Please don't be a friend. Don't text me if you're a friend. You should be ambitious. Please don't be dumb. I wrote all kinds of things. I mean, in a moment. And I was like, sure, if somebody responds, maybe there's something there. I got hundreds of responses. I'm not kidding. You know why? Because back in 1997, I was the only woman speaking for myself on that platform.
And there was something attractive about that.
I think the men were just excited to not having to go through somebody's mother and sister.
Right.
All the other women were being spoken for.
Right.
The men were speaking for themselves, but the women were like, my sister or my daughter. In my case, I was just out there. I was like, bring your tax returns if you want to meet me. So unhinged.
You are brilliant.
But I give that advice today to girls. I'm like, cast a narrow net. People make that mistake. You need one.
Yeah.
You don't have time. Who wants to go on 20 dates?
You know, every time I hear the thing, you need one, I have like PTSD from all the people in my comments who are like, but I'm polyamorous. I'm like, bitch, I am not speaking to you.
Yeah, but that's a whole different show.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm talking to the monogamous people who want one life partner because even one life partner, I'm like, where is he today?
Yeah.
You know?
It's a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so cast a narrow net. You were very specific about what you wanted.
Yeah. And not apologetic, not intentionally. I honestly was too stupid to know it's wrong. I came from a world of arranged marriages where my dad would in hardcore arranged marriages, people openly ask, how much does she weigh?
But that's also a cultural thing, like, because I'm Chinese and very similarly, like, you know, if you've gained a couple pounds and you go see your Chinese auntie, she's gonna be like, oh, you look fatter.
Yeah.
But it's not like a, you know, oh my God. It's just like you gained weight.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah.
And fix it. How can you fix it?
And then people tell you before Zillow and Redfin, when everybody's houses were public knowledge.
Yeah.
In Chinese culture, I remember my parents, when they had their friends over and I was a little kid, they would routinely talk about how much they paid for their houses, how much they negotiated off. Asian people never brag about how much they spent on an item. They always brag about how much they saved.
Of course.
They're like, by the end, they're paying me to buy the item, right? But then, my parents would say they were like, Chinese people and Indian people can never negotiate because they can never come to a meeting of the minds because nobody wants to pay anything. Nobody wants to give anything.
And everybody wants that good deal.
Everybody wants a deal, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So your husband was one of hundreds of people that reached out to you.
No, he actually reached out to me to make fun of me. He wasn't actually responding to my ad. He was in Switzerland goofing around with his friends. They were like the internet was so new, we were all curious.
Right.
So all these guys who were like engineers working in Switzerland in like these big fancy banks at night would be like, what is this? And they came upon my ad, my husband, and he emailed me. He's like, are you for real? What is this? Like, and I was like, is this very real? And I'm on a mission. My ad actually said, I'm on a mission to build a successful life. You must be ready to join me. So I was like, did you read my ad?
Because you sound like an ad for a cult.
I know. I was like, I was crazy. And I'm like, I own it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I was on my own. I had no idea. I'd never dated American style.
Right.
I had watched Friends and I was horrified. I thought Friends was a horror show. Everybody was dating everybody. Nobody ever got married. There was no real commitment. And then they were all living in one apartment. It sounded so bad to me. That I was like, please don't be a friend.
You were like the opposite of whatever the opposite of Friends
is. But he really did respond to be like, you can't be real. And, he is a student of the most elite university in India. So grew up being told he's amazing. So complete opposite experience of my life. So he was very taken aback by this woman who's like, who are you even? And you're not even in America. Why are you wasting my time? Because I was like, I'm here now. I'm going to meet somebody here and make my life here. He was in Europe. But he was very curious and very like, I would love to meet you. I'm like, did you? Again, if one refers to my ad, I don't just meet people. I'm meeting to get married. I was very clear. I want to get married. That's another thing. I do tell people now, if you want to get married, just say that that's your intention. Like,
yes. Okay, wait. Because
right?
I have never been a casual dater, even when I was 20 years old. I remember thinking freshman year of NYU, I went to NYU for college, and I met this guy, like orientation. I think I was 19 at the time. And I was like, if he's my husband, great. We can check that off of the box.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, it's great. But I think, especially in my early 20s, and I don't know if you felt this, but there was a lot of pressure, especially if you're like a feminist, to be like, we're just having fun. I can do this. We can be casual. And I just realized I never wanted to be casual. It seemed pointless to me because I wanted to do something with my life, even though I was going about it in a very unconventional way. And just having casual relationships just seemed like a waste of time to me. I got no fulfillment out of it, but it's very uncool to say that. It's very uncool to be like, I just want to find a husband.
Right.
I was like, I don't even care about a fucking boyfriend at this point. Like, let's just
well,
cut to
because
the
I
chase.
think people assume husband means you want somebody to take care of you. And that's not what it ever meant to me. And I don't think to you.
No.
I think it meant more like I want a partner to build something with.
Yes.
And I don't think there's any shame in that.
Well, you know, practical people win, which is, you coined that. I always thought about that because that's how I was raised. Like my parents and like Asian culture immigrants, they come here and they have to stay together. I'm like, you know, Asian families, like half of them, it's like, it is a business. It's a family business. The family is the business, right?
Absolutely.
And so there was none of this kind of, traditional male-female roles. Everybody just did what was necessary to survive. Like my parents, there was no like, well, you know, I'm the man, I do this, you're the woman. It's like, whatever. We need to find money. The kid needs to get fed. Whoever can do it.
And the kid can run the office today.
Exactly.
Like you have Sundays off, let's go.
Well, I used to go, my mom, her first job in the States was she was a nanny and a house cleaner. I used to go with her to every job. And I started staying home alone when I was like 8 at a very young age because she had to go to work. And I just got to a point where I was like, I don't want to go with you. And they're like, well, we're not paying for a babysitter because mom is the babysitter. So you'll just figure it out. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal now, but whatever. It's fine. It is. It's gentle
reality.
parenting.
It's a reality for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Even today.
Yeah.
I mean, we can call it whatever it is, but that is the reality.
Yeah.
Where are the women supposed to get help from? This is when it hits you. I'm sure it hit your mom one day.
Yeah, well, she had no family.
Yeah.
And
then she's all alone and she has to work.
Right. And she's got to figure out how to do it. All right. Zarna's back from the bathroom after how many glasses of water and cups of coffee? We've got a little beverage station over here.
Depends. If you need a spokesperson, I'm available for my very reasonable high price.
Get in touch with her agents.
Yeah.
Tell me about this book. What is like, first of all, why did you want to write a memoir at this stage? Because to me, people write memoirs when they're like 10, 15 years into their careers.
Yeah.
You are like, you're on fire and you're just getting started.
Yeah.
Why not write a memoir? Well, you'll write a memoir in 10 years too, but why now?
Because I wanted to answer the questions that everybody asks me everywhere I go. How do I get started? How do I get into it? When they're asking me, I see curiosity in their eyes for themselves. I feel like they're not asking me to know my journey. They're asking because they have questions for their own lives. Like they all want to do something but don't know how to get started. Somehow I've become the inspiration for that. Unintentionally, I didn't think that I was doing anything inspiration worthy. God knows I've failed so much. But that same question has come up so much. I really did this book as a service, which I'm completely against as an Indian. Usually I only do for profit. Like people, reach out. They're like, I have a charity. I'm like, I'm for profit. Because I've got too many responsibilities to get into it with everybody. But I truly wrote this book thinking, if I can put all my entire journey and the whole authenticity of it. Everything is true. Everything happened the way it says. Maybe it inspires people to take their own shots and fail and get up and fail again and get up. In addition to all my losses during the pandemic, my husband lost his job. So my comedy went from like, I'm a lady who lunches and does open mics. I went from that to like, oh my God, like we need money.
Yeah.
You know, we live in Manhattan. We're a family of 5. It goes fast when there's no income coming in. It goes so fast. We lost everything during the pandemic. Everything. Our 401k, everything. The amount of pressure that we were under. And my poor husband for 22, 23 years had been running this life by himself. I really felt like it's not fair, that it's time for me to step up. And I can. I did it as a challenge to myself. And I rounded my kids up and I was like, we're going to do this together. And everybody's going to be part of it with me. And they were like, what are we going to do? I said, I'm going to be famous for a living.
That's amazing.
Because somehow fame gets you paid.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, if that's how we get paid, that's what we're going to do.
Well, and I love, again, your brutal honesty is so refreshing because as we were, during the break, I was talking to Haley over here behind the camera about how you say the things that truly everyone is thinking, but people are too scared to say. Like one of my favorite videos of yours that you made, actually, it might not have been a video, it might have been a carousel post. This was a year ago. And you said, I was in a meeting. You were in a meeting with some executive.
Yeah.
And he was asking you what your purpose was for doing all of this, why you work so hard. And you were like, money. Yeah. And then he goes, okay, but beyond that, what is your purpose?
Yeah.
And you were like, money.
Yeah.
And then he asked, and it's like, I think your point was, especially women, like men are allowed to be driven purely by dollars and cents. Yeah. But women, for some reason, when we get into interviews, we have to have some higher charitable cause. Bitch, I want to buy nice things.
Yeah.
Okay?
Or just pay off my mortgage.
Yeah.
I have to remind other moms my age that those kisses from your kids are not going to pay off your mortgage.
Right.
Wake up. One of the most startling statistics that I realized in the last few years was that the face of poverty in America is actually motherhood. If you're a mother and by some force of life you end up being single, the odds are actually very high that you're going to end up in really dire financial circumstances. It woke me up too. And I'm like in a happy-ish marriage. Okay, I mean like happy-ish, depending on the day. No, we're good. My husband and I were good. He works a lot. I work a lot. But women just feel like, oh, but I'm married and I'm married well, or my dad, or no. You got to do this for you. And I'm very like, I just don't have the time or the energy to bullshit. I honestly don't. I do too many things. And like my daughter, I had forced her to be part of a Miss Teen New York competition. It's a whole another story. But I made her do it because she's 5 feet tall. And all our lives, her life and my life, we always thought that to be beautiful, you had to be tall. But we're both short girls. And I was like, you know what? I don't think she should have to live with the burden of that. I grew up in a different world. So on a whim, I signed her up for Miss Teen New York. And she made all kinds of rounds. And she was like, what am I doing? I'm not a pageant girl. I was like, just do it. See what it's like. Let's figure out what this world is like. It'll be an interesting thing we'll do. But one of the things I learned, when they prep you for the Q&A when you're in the finalist, like the final 20 or whatever, that they might ask you this, they might ask you that, and you need answers ready to go. One of the things they prep you for is if you win, what will you do with the winnings, with the money? And my daughter, being the daughter of me, was like, I'll start a business. Because that's what she wants to do. And they were like, no, you have to have a charitable cause. Like, what? I was like, these girls are teenagers. Why aren't they allowed to have their own ambitions? Like, it's one thing to say to a grown woman who's lived her life, like, what's your charitable aim? These girls are just getting started. Why are we already, like, burdening them with...
taking care of everybody else
would
before
you
they take care
ever
of
say that to a
themselves?
boy?
No.
Would you ever say to a boy, like, but what is your charity? Like, what? And it became like another moment of reality for her, for me. Like, the world is not set up to help us or even to help us refine our ambitions. We're going to have to do it ourselves.
But I think, and even in this day and age,
Yeah.
and I find this too amongst some of my peers, it's like, if you married well, quote unquote, there is almost glory in never looking at a bill, in never having to think about how your money is invested. You know, I've been around groups of women where they're like, oh, I don't understand anything about the money that comes in or the money that goes out. You know, my husband handles all of that. And every time I hear that, I don't know what it is. It just like infuriates me because it's weaponized incompetence.
Yeah.
Because it is just willful ignorance. And it is effectively, to me, what it feels like is that you are willing to be controlled because letting somebody else make your decisions for you is just so much easier than choosing to live your own life. It's hard, okay? It's hard making your own decisions. I mean, I grew up the daughter of Chinese immigrants. I didn't know what a 401k was. I didn't know what the S&P 500 was. When I was in college, I dated a guy, and I had no idea at that time what an investment account was. The stock market scared me.
Yeah,
because I just thought I was 18 when 2008 happened. So to me, I was like, you know, I was a cognizant, like I was like in college, I was like, this could make your money go away. Why would anybody invest in the stock market? I don't understand. Like this, don't touch it, you know? I didn't understand inflation either. And I remember my ex in college just being like, oh, you know, you need to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was the freaking, you know, book of the century. And he would quote it like he was some, you know, Goldman Sachs financial advisor. And I always thought, oh my gosh, like he's a man, he's white, he grew up wealthy. Like I need somebody like this to teach me because my parents sure as hell didn't know. And over time I realized like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, we got to move past that.
Yeah.
But also, you know what was so boss in my family? My mother taught herself how to trade and how to invest. And because my father was too busy working. He had no idea, like, he's like, I can't look into this. So she was like, you know what? She had finally, they'd gotten to a point where she could stop cleaning houses, right?
Wow.
And babysitting.
That's a journey.
That is a journey. And she was like, I am going to teach myself how the stock market works. And she taught me. I don't know anything, but I know enough to be like, this is where I'm going to put my money. It's actually quite simple. You put your money in the S&P 500 if you don't want to pick your own stocks, and you just don't take it out.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe I thought I needed a man for that, you know? But I think that's what it is. We don't teach young girls. Why did I learn calculus in high school and not how the stock market works, right? But we don't teach young girls that it's honorable, that it's cool to handle your own money. We teach them that it's cool to have a husband who handles it for you.
Oh my God. But I've lived that blissfully ignorant life, and I can't even imagine now. Because now that I am an entrepreneur running my own business, I'm so much better at it than any man I can see around me. It's actually not that hard. To all the women who are watching this, it is not that hard. Like, I'm not kidding. I listen to men speak and I'm like, you need to sit down, chipmunk. You don't know what you're talking about. Let me handle this. Because we get involved and we fix it. I see a problem and the pathway to fixing it is so clear in my head. Whereas some guys, not all, but many guys, will be, I don't know, that's a lot. Like, you know, we're content creators, you and I, right? Do you know how many people will be like, how did you do it? And we tell them. I tell them, it's not that deep. Make a video every day.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, but the time will pass anyways.
Yeah.
So you can either make
work. Like, I don't know what to say to you. There's no way to do it without doing it.
Yeah.
So, but now that I'm running a business, I'm telling you, I'm so good. And I know so many phenomenal female entrepreneurs. Our instincts are actually designed to win at this game. We just haven't been channeling them. We've been channeling them on like, what will my husband like to eat? It needs to be redirected. You know what I mean?
But I think in general, women are we're better multitaskers. I think that's been proven time and time again. I'll never forget, my mother-in-law said this amazing thing one time over the phone. In just a moment, she was like, because she's been married to my father-in-law for like 40-some years, and they're a great team together. But she said, because in a moment, like he couldn't figure out how to turn the gas off, I think, on the stove. She was like, honestly, if I ever get hit by a bus, you need to get remarried the next day because you cannot do this life without me. And I think the statistics show that when like a woman passes away, her husband is much more likely to pass away very quickly after. Because they just don't want to figure out how to do life without them. Like, I haven't been married that long, okay? I've been with my husband for almost 7 years. I've been married for 2. But the other day, he walked past me and asked me what our zip code was.
Oh.
And I was like, what do you mean? What is our zip code? He was like, oh, my credit card company is asking, what is our zip code?
Oh, well, now there's a reason to know what your zip code is.
Yeah. So, and then I say to him, I was like, okay, fair. He was like, look, we haven't lived there that long. We just moved a month ago. We've been in the house for a month. I was like, all right, fair. I was like, do you know our old zip code? The place where we lived in for 3 years. And he said a zip code that was incorrect. And I was like, and this is why women, it's just not that hard. Our brains are wired to handle this information.
It can be done. I mean, we should get in it. It's a game. Now that you treat entrepreneurship like a game, like a business, it's actually fun, I think.
It is very fun. And I think it's very exhausting. And here's the thing is like the highs are very high and the lows are very low.
Yeah.
But to me, it's better than being bored. It's better than the day in and day out of the monotony of just everything sort of at an even keel. Something you said to me when I came in, though, because I was commenting on, you've had this massive wave of success, at least what it appears to me as a follower.
Yeah.
And you have. So I want to give credit to that. But you also said, you know what? I take so many hits every day that I don't post about.
No.
How do you maintain your sense of enthusiasm? How do you push past all of that? Because for so many people, it's so hard to look at the successes and look at the failures and not give more weight to the failures. I know I do that all the time. You know, I'm like, oh my God, is my career ending? My husband's like, but all of this good stuff happened this week and you're focused on the one video that didn't perform the way you thought it would. How do you stay grounded?
Desperation. I have to be.
Right.
You know, you remind yourself that this is a business. Like I like to remind myself that winning in business is a game of persistence, not proof. Everybody can do it once, twice, 5 times, 10 times. It's the people who can do it over and over again consistently through life's ups and downs that will win the long game. So it just becomes a pathway of how do you hang in there through the downs. And I have a lot of tricks to like help me ride out the downs. I get rejected every day from things. I take random crazy shots that you can't even believe. I will have my agent call like the biggest name on earth and be like, I should open for you. And of course they're going to be like, no. But I don't take it personally anymore. And I've learned as a woman, and this is going to sound so bratty, but I'm just going to say it. One thing that has helped me greatly is removing all the friction from my life that I can. Like I take car service everywhere because I sit in the back seat and I work. I focus all my energy on propelling myself so that I don't have time to like absorb the hits. I don't dwell on it. Like if somebody says, no, right now in 2025, after having 2 comedy specials out, there are clubs in New York City that don't want me. And that's okay. I'm like, you know what? You don't want me, we move on. We find the club that wants me and we move on. I've built a bigger business in a modest club on the Upper West Side than most clubs in the rest of New York City because once I realized that these clubs are playing stupid games and they're in it for stupid prizes, I just went and built my own thing and a tiny club and made it my thing. I now do shows at this tiny club that people fly in from all over the world to watch. You won't believe it. Because a lot of comics, for example, conventional wisdom will be like touring money. I can't afford it. I have 3 kids, a lot of responsibilities, and I'm working on very major projects that require me to be grounded. I lose time sitting in an airplane where I can't zoom and continue my business. So I've kind of reversed it to a large extent where people reach out to me, when are you coming here? When are you coming there? I'll be like, you know what? Why don't you come to New York? Support my city. I will give you the show of your life. People come with their kids, their husbands, families, in-laws. So many women come with their mother-in-laws. And they had the best night of their life at my show. And I feel kind of good about it because I'm bringing business to my city. And I'm removing all the friction that I can. Now, of course, I don't get the big touring money that people get from flying all over the place. But what it does is it grounds me in one place. And I can focus on other projects that I want to be doing. Because I'm not losing time flying all over. So you have to find your own solutions and make it happen for yourself. And I pride myself on being a woman who understands what other women want in a show. Because I do live shows, I feel like, for example, men love to do big venues. The traditional path, bigger, like you did Beacon, now do Madison Square Garden. Me as a woman, I don't like going to Madison Square Garden. I like the smaller venues where it's full service. They bring you your food and drink. That's my ideal night out. So I do a lot of thinking about like what works. And because I'm so consumed with serving my audience, I just don't have time to talk about my losses. And I don't want to post my losses, not because I want to lie to my audience. My fan base is actually very motivated and loyal, like yours. I've seen your fans. I don't want to put the burden on them to make them feel bad and make me feel good every day. I know what my fan base will do. If I post a rejection letter, I know exactly how they will activate. They'll be like, they didn't mean it. They'll go after the people who did that. You know what I mean? They're very passionate.
Right.
But I don't want to put that burden on them. I want my page to largely be a happy page.
Right. To inspire.
And just come and have fun and feel like you can do whatever it is that I'm doing because you really can. There's nothing. I tell people that the most extraordinary thing about me is that I'm completely ordinary. There's nothing extraordinary about me. Like, and everybody can do what I'm doing.
That is the most amazing, inspirational, 5 minutes ever. I need to clip all of that and save it. Thank you so much for being here. I cannot think of a better way to end. Yeah. You wrote your own comedy special on this podcast. I cannot wait to dive into this book. Do I get to keep this?
Yes.
Everybody go buy this book. This is amazing. You're incredible. I cannot wait to see you take off even further than you have. And I'm going to use that persistence over proof.
Yeah. That's the game.
That is the game.
The people who hang in there. So through the downtimes, make the downtimes comfortable. Get that 2-hour massage. Get whatever you need to get to take that break to recalibrate and get back in the game. What people do is when they get hit, they quit. You can't quit. You just have to understand this is a temporary valley you're going through and how you're going to put that Gucci shawl on and make that ride smoother, whatever that version of it is for you. For some people, it's have this opulent takeout. For some people, for me, it's all of it. I'm so bad.
Spend all the money.
Spend it all. But not because it's dumb. It's an investment.
Right.
It's an investment in building. The downs are going to come.
Well, your joy is an investment, you know?
Well, I mean, joy, we don't like that word. As Asians.
I knew it's not about joy.
It's not about joy. But it is an investment, and I have learned, I teach my daughter, my sons the same thing, They take hits every day too. I'm like, don't dwell on it. Don't give it energy. Move it along.
I feel like you're my Indian auntie giving me advice. Thank you so much, Zarna. Where can everyone find you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. At Zarna Garg everywhere on pretty much all platforms, even Red Note and OnlyFans coming soon. Yeah, because why not?
The feet? Come on.
I know.
The feet could pay off.
We can make some jokes about that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.